you need to have a lot of empathy for what the other person is bringing to the table. And I think if you end up with a power struggle where, well, I want to make sure that we get tech debt down and you want to make sure that this customer's need is met, you're always going to be adversaries.
Yeah.
If I am fighting for the customer and the product manager is fighting for tech debt, then you've got a balance.
Welcome to the Make Tomorrow podcast, where we venture into the heart of innovation and technology. I'm your host, Tristan Sternson, the global co-lead of our NCS Next business. We're going to invite on some very exciting guests onto this show who are going to talk about their Make Tomorrow and how technology and innovation are shaping the world. Welcome to another episode of Make Tomorrow podcast. Today's episode is on Make Tomorrow Collaborative. We're going to delve into the intersection of technology and how we build technology and the ways we can collaborate to make it better in the future. Today, we're thrilled to have Katy Jenkins joining us. Katy is a seasoned technical manager, professional with over a decade experience in technology, delivering business strategy and technology solutions. Currently, she serves as a software engineering manager at Safety Culture, a company at the forefront of workplace safety technology. Also special to have Katy on because we've worked together before in the past. So welcome, Katy, to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Fantastic to have you here. Katy's experience also spans across front-end software engineering, marketing automation, safety architecture, and Atlassian suite systems. Katy's leadership and technical acumen has been positioned her as a key player in developing integrated solutions that bridge the gap between revenue and technology, making her an invaluable asset to the tech and safety sector. And as I said, to working with me in the past where we had a lot of fun.
We did, indeed.
We did.
You make me sound great.
Well, you are great, Katy. And everyone's going to get to hear that during this podcast, which is awesome. So we're going to start with one of my favorite questions. If you can invent a new technology that hasn't or doesn't exist today, what would it be and why?
This is a good one. I have recently gone through some sickness with my mother. She was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And I was left thinking, why on earth in this day and age do we not have a better way of detecting this stuff? You know, so I think the technology that I would invent if I had a magic wand and this skill set to invent it would be a full body scanner. So, you lie down on a bed and they can immediately detect early stage cancer or other diseases. It's crazy that we have to wait till we get symptoms, you stage 3, you stage 4 before the end.
Yeah, and affordable too would be important because
100%.
I've seen some of this tech out there that does it, but it's just not achievable to the average person and so expensive and probably not approved in Australia, which we find with a lot of these technologies. So, wow, that's really good. I love the health science space. That's like a key area for me in the biohacking and stuff. So I love that answer. It's really good. The tech industry has changed so much in the last few years, right? And I just look back to pre-COVID. We worked together pre-COVID. We didn't work together during COVID. Did we? I think the businesses split around about that time or just before that time.
Yep.
An amazing world of things that have happened. So if you could change something about the tech industry overnight, not with COVID this time, what would it be and how would you go about it?
Yeah, so it is sort of related to COVID. Obviously, one of the major changes due to the COVID environment was hybrid and remote workplaces. And I think for myself at least, life changed so much. The balance between work and home changed so much. You could now be home, get all of your work done, and still connect with your children or get the washing done or whatever it is, you save hours in the day. And that was a huge benefit to happiness and, mental health and all of this kind of stuff. I think over the years in this sort of capitalist society, we've bent too far in the other direction. And I would love to see a rebalance in that space. So we do still see a lot of hybrid workplaces,
Yep.
But I'm starting to see more and more, particularly CEOs and leaders who are pushing people to come back into the office with this idea that we're not as productive as at home or, they can't trust us to work at home or whatever it is. And I would love to see the attitudes around that change to fully support a remote workforce.
Yeah, okay. Do you think I mean, I see it a lot in different areas, and I'm a fan of being in the office, right? And for different reasons to what you just mentioned, right? And the main reason being is, as a graduate myself, I learned a lot and I grew quickly and progressed, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm seeing how we do that differently now in this kind of hybrid working space. So what are some of the tips and tricks to how people do that? Because it happens, right? Like I don't want to call myself old school, but that's how we did it in the past. It's like, everyone talks about the water cooler conversations, right? It's like, how do you replicate that water cooler conversation?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest challenge. The loss of culture, of social interaction, that's where I think the biggest problem is to solve. Early days, it was how do you collaborate real time? And I think that there's a lot of tools these days that have sprung up, and that's not so much of a problem anymore. But that social connection, you pass someone in the hallway and suddenly you've got a project to work on together. You just don't get that at home. Yeah. So while I think that supporting and enabling and celebrating remote workers is important, you still need to have a workplace to get together, and something, a 2-3 split or even a 5-1 split, 4-1 split. So you're still coming into the office and seeing each other has to be a part of it.
Did we not meet over a social coffee that was connected via Slack? Is that how we first
Probably.
met? I think that was our first real, not real conversation, but that was the first time we really got together. And that was cool. That's a combination of tech and getting people together and stuff. I don't think you'd have to be in the office every day to do that, but like if you were connected, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. And you didn't get that, I think, before COVID. This has definitely been, or not as much, definitely been an advantage of being forced into a situation that we were not prepared for.
Yeah. That's almost like a use of artificial intelligence. That was just like a randomizer that kind of connected everyone into business. We had a thing called social coffee for people listening, which was like, there were 100 people in it. It would just randomly connect people to each other. I thought that was awesome. It was just like such a good opportunity to meet different people. I reckon with AI nowadays, you could actually put more into it to kind of work out, hey, this person has dislikes and interests and whatever. Maybe you want to connect them together. Maybe you want to connect people. Maybe it's a social experiment. We connect people who are totally different, right? And see how that works.
100%. Yeah, I've actually set up the same bot in safety cultures. So because it was so successful, it's a fantastic opportunity. But I like that. I think pairing people up who have something in common or absolutely nothing in common and challenging them to find that common ground, I think would make it really interesting.
Yeah. If I think back to COVID, the one thing I would definitely never do myself is what was it called? House Party. Was that the app that everyone used? And we used to get everyone together and do drinks on a Friday night.
Yeah. We did have some success, like playing party games.
Yeah.
That wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
But these days it seems to be the Thursday is social day in the office, and then Monday and Friday is quieter. Do you find that?
Well, definitely. I can tell by the traffic on the roads.
Yeah.
And I tend to spend more time at home on a Friday with family.
Yep.
And I love that. That's like cool. Kids come home for the weekend and you can kind of see them and spend time with them. And so Thursdays do make more sense. But if you want a big night out.
Well, that's the other problem, though. I think in the old days, I say the old days, like we're 100 years old, but
like 3 years ago, right? Yeah.
In the olden days, you used to go to a pub after work and get together, whereas these days, certainly in the tech industry, there's more emphasis on having a cool office space.
Yeah.
You've got the bar that's stocked with drinks that you can have. You've got snacks. You've got food served at lunch, and so that develops the social connection in the office.
Yep.
But I think at the cost of people getting together outside of work.
Yep.
So I don't know whether there's a winner or a loser out of those two options, but it's definitely different.
Yeah. What do you guys do at Safety Culture? Do you have, what's your office like, and do people come in all the time, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's an incredible office space. We actually had a building built specifically for us. I think it's 7 stories, with a gym and a lunch area and event space, and we play board games. It's a fantastic area. So I love coming in these days.
Yeah, that's cool, and I think that is important too. Like we've done the same. NCS in Singapore built just the most amazing campus, right? And it's kind of the same sort of thing. It's probably 4 stories over 2 buildings, but the gym, right? And actually, this is an interesting thing, right? So that's another way to engage with people. I actually find, and I love going to the gym, that just by going to the gym, and it doesn't matter who's who and what levels or whatever, you just find yourself talking to people, and I find that very engaging, which is quite quite cool. And then all of a sudden then you're having a coffee with someone and maybe a board game and yeah.
Yeah, 100%. It breaks down the barriers that you can get from hierarchy in a business, I think. Yeah.
What are some of the technology tools you think really have helped you enable that kind of working together when you're not in the office?
So at Safety Culture, we are a bit of a Zoom shop.
Yep.
Everything is done on Zoom or Slack. It's funny, going back a few years, everything was on email. And these days, messages and announcements, interactions, polls, sharing a whiteboard, doing a retro on sometimes we use even FigJam for that, which is not really used for that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's just everyone on the same space, adding stickies and adding comments and all of this kind of stuff. And that it feels almost easier these days than whiteboarding.
Yeah.
Whereas in the early days, it was quite jarring to not have access to a whiteboard altogether. And you'd see people stand up on a whiteboard and then try and point their computer at the whiteboard. And can you see that? Oh, can you zoom in a little bit? It was really awkward.
Yeah.
But I don't find that people do that anymore.
I saw something cool the other day. Someone did a presentation and it was a health thing. And he was like telling about glucose, right? He's going through a glucose monitor and he was like giving the results, but he was writing on a whiteboard. But it was, if you write on a whiteboard and like if you just write a piece of perspex onto a camera, it's going to be the wrong way around. So I don't know how he did it, but it looked amazing. And it was just really engaging the way it was like being in a room with someone with a whiteboard. It was awesome. Got to work out where that was.
I've seen it go both ways. I went to a presentation. It was actually a real estate thing. And they obviously had this idea that writing on the board would be more engaging, and they had kind of half a graph drawn, and then as he was talking he kind of filled in the graph, but it was just clunky. Like it just didn't work. It wasn't, I'm thinking of these things and now I'm trying to illustrate them to you to enhance that communication. It was my words are now designed to hit these points on my piece of paper. So it's very much how you use the tool.
And I think that is important. It's any tool. We know from a tech perspective, like everyone goes, oh, what's the best tool for it? Well, they all work. It's how do you use it the best?
100%.
Let's delve into your leadership. And I've seen you grow. You've worked with me. You're in a lead role at the moment. Talk to me a little bit about a time which kind of defined where you are as a leader, or something that's really turned you into a tech leader.
I always think back to the time when I wasn't a leader, and what that change was. And it seems small, but all it was someone believing in me, and giving me this firm, confident and supportive direction that I might be good at leadership, I should give it a go.
Yep.
And at the time, I was engaged in what I was doing and I enjoyed my work, but the difference in my attitude and in my own personal development, going from that person into a leader has just been massive. Like it's two different people. So I suppose the message there is, supporting others, bringing them up, encouraging them where they may not believe in themselves is just so powerful.
I think tech leadership is really an evolving area. It's funny to think about it. Like, if we wind back to the Melbourne IT story for a second, right? Company started in 1996, right? Well, a bit after, but when the internet first came to Australia. Mm-hmm. And what are we now? We're not even 30 years into that, right? It's just under. And the world has changed. Tech existed before that, but it didn't really exist until the early 2000s and then into the teens when, Amazon came to Australia as a public cloud in 2013, 2013, just on 10 years ago, apps and all that. Everything evolves so quickly. Mm-hmm. It's a whole new industry. So do you find you're constantly, now that you're a leader in this and we can't say we've got 50 years of leadership experience in tech because it didn't exist, right? And we're clearly not old enough to be 50 years of experience yet. But anyway, how do you find, you're constantly having to research and find new things and...
Yeah, sort of. And there's different sorts of leadership that we're talking about here. There's... in the old days, it would have been called being a manager, but being a people leader, being someone who's a role model and someone who's delivering results and so forth, that individual skill set. And then there's leaders in the industry.
Yep.
So we might look at Atlassian or Google or something like that and look at how they are setting the scene and leading interviewing or leading, squad, team structure or whatever it is. And as an individual leader, the skills that I need to develop, quite often I do get from those leaders because they're more mature technology companies. Usually they've kind of gone further in the direction that I want to go, but not always.
Yeah.
Just because they're bigger doesn't mean they're doing it better.
Yeah.
So that's definitely not
I
consistent.
love how you say more mature because they're still babies.
Yeah, you're right. But I mean, Atlassian is enormous now.
It's
like
huge.
thousands and thousands of, I don't know how many employees, but it's massive.
Yeah.
And sometimes I look around safety culture and think, gosh, we're getting really big now. Like we're kind of going from that small to medium to large size and all of the problems that the scaling as a company you can go through. But we're nowhere near Atlassian or Google or, these companies.
And they've had to adapt to that. They've had to kind of create that change and grow with it. I mean, I just think of so many different experiences of what we've done. But I remember when I first started out as a graduate, it was all about getting the office you'd made it. You're in an office. And then you got the bigger office with the window. Then you'd really made it. I don't think I've ever seen an office door in any Australian tech company. Have you?
No. And I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I see, particularly on TV shows or whatever, when you see US offices, and it just is so exclusionary. You that idea that you're all on one team, that you're working together, that you can go to the gym with the CEO and you're both on the bikes and you're equals. I love that about tech companies.
So if you are in the gym with the CEO, all right, I'm the CEO of the ARC Group, of Melbourne IT again. We're in the gym together.
Yep.
I'm on the spin bike. Mm-hmm. Are you going to try and beat me?
No. I don't think so. But I say that because I'm not competitive at spin bikes, and so I think I would fail. However, if there is a board games night that we're both playing at, then I will 100% try and beat you.
All right, okay. I like that. I'm super competitive in everything. Anyway, but it's all good. To me, an open office space, come back to that kind of office thing, is a good place to kind of connect. You can hear people and stuff like that. We tried the metaverse. Right? And we tried to create like a meeting space in the metaverse and people hung out there before. What's the most extreme thing? And I'm not calling that extreme because it is actually going to work at some point in time, but what's the most extreme thing you've tried to try and do collaboration a little bit differently? It doesn't have to have succeeded.
Yeah, I don't know what tool you're referring to there, but what we tried.
Can't remember what it was called.
Yeah, I don't know. It might be the same thing, but one of the things that we tried was like you build a room with desks or plants or whatever you want, which was like an isometric game, like looks like Pokemon.
Yeah.
And you each have a little character, and then you can go into the workspace, and then you can have like a video call if you're in the same little fake workspace.
Yeah.
And the idea was that you would kind of hang out together, so it felt like you were there.
Yeah.
But you weren't really. So that was fun for about half an hour and then completely flopped.
Yeah.
There's something else that we tried that was similar, that was a little bit more successful, which is essentially an open Zoom call. Where you leave yourself on mute. There's no pressure to be sitting in front of the screen. You want to go and get a coffee, you go and get a coffee or whatever it is. But you do get that feeling of my team is right there with me, which is definitely something that you miss sitting in an office by yourself.
Yeah. Our one was, I can't remember what it was, but it's probably very similar. We tried to, the real metaverse we created, like a proper strap on the goggle metaverse one. Everyone just fired off fireworks at each other. That was about as good as it was.
Yeah,
I watched
pretty
the
much.
TV.
Yeah.
But the other one where you actually walked past someone and it popped up and you had a conversation, that was kind of cool. And then we developed that actually as an art market for some Indigenous art at one stage, which was really cool. But that was probably the most extreme we did. And we're still trying to, I reckon there's a play in that somewhere for a marketplace to kind of come up with. What's a piece of advice that you've found yourself that was given to you that you kept finding you're sharing with other people in the tech sector?
Particularly working with engineers and being one myself a long time ago. and I'm making generalizations, we tend to be quite pragmatic, logical, and we tend to be quite black and white. This is perfect for writing code and doing maths, but it's not so great for interpersonal relations and, managing stakeholders and getting along with your teammates. So one of the quite early pieces of advice that I got, which I remember reacting quite strongly to, oh, no, I don't do that, and then kind of thinking about it later, that's become quite valuable, was watch out for shades of grey. Try to be comfortable with shades of grey. Seek them out. Everything is not black and white, and you can't always shove everything that you're talking about and trying to achieve. Well, if it's not black, it's white.
Yeah.
You need to be comfortable with that middle part. And I tend to give that advice to engineers through personal development plans and this sort of stuff, because I can see, having gone through these sorts of development myself, the same sort of traits in them. So I can kind of provide some context.
Yep, shades of grey. Also, failing fast would probably fit into that area. Just seeing people fail and turning it into a learning opportunity is great.
Failing is fantastic.
Yeah.
Like if you've failed, the key learning there is that you've come to a conclusion. Whether it's succeeded or failed is almost irrelevant. Not making a choice or not coming to the conclusion, that's the worst.
Yeah. Because
you can go along forever going, oh, we're still trying.
Yeah.
Okay, but did it work or not? Oh, I don't want to commit to that. That's the key.
Yeah.
You know? And the trying again is a really important step as well.
Yeah.
I have an 18-month-old at home, and his resilience for trying again is mind-blowing. He can fall off something, hurt his head to the point that he's got a bump on his head, and 3 seconds later, he's up doing the exact same thing again. He's just not fazed at all by this.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of adults could learn from this sort of, fail fast, yes, fail hard, hurt yourself, no worries, acknowledge, get better, learn, succeed next time.
Yeah. Kids are also more creative. I think they did a study on kids versus CEOs, kindergarten kids and CEOs, and they found that kindergarten kids are a lot more creative than CEOs, which is
unsurprising.
They get paid less. So who has been one of your greatest influences in your journey, and how have they shaped you and your views on making tomorrow? I'm
going to go with Patrick Lencioni, the author. In particular, a book that I was recommended to read and loved really early in my career, which has stuck with me, was The Ideal Team Player.
Yeah.
In that, he talks about the three basic traits, character traits, we're not talking skills, of someone who essentially makes it's the ideal team player, right?
Yep.
Who's going to be a good team member for you. And that is hungry, humble, and smart.
Yep.
So hungry as in ambitious, keen to improve skill mastery and so forth, also career. Humble, which is obviously you don't want someone who's going to be bratty or braggy, or, you want someone who's going to be pleasant to get along with. And then smart, which is actually EQ, not necessarily IQ, empathy and this sort of thing. So very early on, I used these three traits to influence my interviewing questions, to try and target not necessarily someone who had the right technical skill set. That's important as well, of course. But I think too often we target that without also targeting or assessing someone who's going to get along well with the team. I think we can mask as a cultural fit or cultural add, but it's more than that. It's, are they going to be a good addition in general, regardless of the culture?
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. That's cool. I like Patrick Lencioni. A lot of key learnings, and no, that's really good. Challenges. So is there a moment when a technology challenge has hit you and led to something you were unexpected, or led to probably an even more innovative solution that you hadn't thought of?
Let me talk to a process change rather than a innovative development as such.
Yep.
So I think every engineering manager and possibly engineer has probably been challenged to go faster. Build more, build it better, build it yesterday. there's a balance that you need to find between how much resources you have to deliver it, how much time you have to deliver it in, and the scope that you have been asked to deliver. And these are kind of, you can move the levers, but you can't make them all go to 100%. It just doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
So what else could we change? And what we looked at was the process that we were using to deliver.
Yeah.
And I would say 90% of engineering teams these days, software engineering teams, are in a Scrum sort of framework. You're in a 2-week sprint, you've got planning, you've got refinement. It's pretty standard. And so what we did was we took that right back and moved to more of a Kanban process.
Yep.
And we went right back to Kanban light. So a lot of people use kind of a Scrum ban where they don't use sprints, but then they don't do planning, which I think is sort of the worst of both worlds. But this was right back. So we had no estimation, we had no planning, we had no retros, we kept stand up, but that's it.
Yep.
And so the amount of time that the team got back in the week was massive.
Yeah. Okay.
There were some learnings from it. So we actually ended up bringing a very basic estimation back in, because after doing it for 3 to 6 months, we decided that we wanted to be more accurate with our delivery estimates. But we're not doing planning poker or anything like that, and we update the estimations as we go. So this is not an exercise in being good at estimations. It's just an exercise in delivering on time and knowing when we're going to be delivering.
I love thinking about engineers in general. Like engineers, we call them. What did we call them years ago? Just developers.
Developers,
yeah. Now they're engineers, and tomorrow they'll be something else, and whatever. There'll be AI bots or something, human versions of them.
Yeah.
But I don't know. People realise how difficult it sometimes can be as well, because they vary in different backgrounds, technologies, ethnicities, cultures, genders, diversity, everything. Right? We bring them all together, because if you don't have a full diverse team, you probably don't get the best solution, right? But in general, we're known as techies. I'm a techie too, and you're a techie as well. To kind of like, we're a little bit, what's the right word?
We're giant nerds.
We're giant nerds, right? And we don't like to be told we're wrong, right? So you tell someone you got a defect, like, no, I don't have a defect, right? It's all fine.
Totally.
Tell me about a really difficult situation you've had managing someone or something or interesting if it's not difficult.
I think you always get, I get what you're coming at with engineers are a bit different.
Yep.
I've worked really closely with marketing teams as well, and sales teams, and the kind of people, kind of personalities that you get in marketing and sales are just chalk and cheese with what you get in engineers. And I love both for different reasons. But as a manager, you definitely need to have different skill sets to bring out the best in those sorts of people. So it kind of goes back to the shades of grey conversation. In dealing with engineers, sometimes you really need to be patient and explain or show what they're doing, like how that comes across, and how someone else might misunderstand that, or it may not make sense to them because they're coming at it from this particular black and white perspective. And that can be really difficult for some of these personality types. These are generalizations, don't get me wrong, but these people are hired for their strengths in analytical thinking and, data and numbers. And so you always get strengths and weaknesses with that sort of type.
You do. And nerds are cool now, right? Because we rule the world,
What do you mean now? We've always been cool.
We've always been cool, yeah. But we always thought we were cool. Yeah. Now we actually are cool,
yeah, that's
right?
true.
Maybe that's how it is. Back to the collaboration side of things. Can you highlight a collaboration or partnership that amplified your ability to drive change in the tech world?
Yeah, 100% engineering and product. So grouping product with design as well. And different companies have different relationships and build different relationships with these sorts of organizations. At Safety Culture, we have a really strong engineering team and a really strong product and design team. And the relationship between the triad, the engineering manager, the product manager, and the UX designer or product designer is absolutely key to the success of the product. And you can look around the engineering organization, and the strongest relationships usually lead to the strongest products and the most successful products. So I think that's 100% the most influential
How do
relationship.
you build those relationships if they don't exist?
It's a great question. It definitely depends on the individuals involved and their own desire and openness to have those relationships. You need to have a lot of empathy for what the other person is bringing to the table. And I think if you end up with a power struggle where, well, I want to make sure that we get tech debt down and you want to make sure that this customer's need is met, you're always going to be adversaries.
Yeah.
If I am fighting for the customer and the product manager is fighting for tech debt, then you've got a balance.
Yeah.
So it's got to be, a balance between the individuals.
I love the balance because every time, like particularly the enterprise sales, you've always got the sales guy who can always never delivered anything, but can always sell the best solution with everything that the engineers there need to deliver within a scope. Getting that collaboration right, that's where the quality companies come into it and get it, and deliver successfully. And I see too many outfits that can't do that, right? And
probably because they're not having that conversation.
Yeah.
I hear that from engineers. Oh, the sales guys have sold something that we can't deliver again. Well, have you spoken to the sales guys? Have you told them what you can deliver and what you want to deliver? Oh, no. Well, you need to be getting into a room. We've talked about extending the triad to include sales and support, knowledge writing, all of this kind of stuff. Because otherwise you don't even marketing. You don't have a constant conversation about managing expectations and what can you do and what do you want to do and what the plan is. Customers need to know the roadmap. But it can't just be a monthly update.
One of my classic stories, I'll probably get in trouble for telling this one, but why not? It's a good one. Was we were winning awards for an app that we built from Vision Australia because of its accessibility, and it was just amazing. This app had all the bells and whistles on it. The statement of work didn't have any of that in it, right? So we ran it, and it's like, who's going to pay for this? But it was the best app ever. So if you don't get the collaboration right, yes, everyone wants the world's best, right? Everyone wants a Rolls Royce, right? But you've got to make sure that people understand what they're getting. And those tough conversations are important. Outside of what you do in the tech space, and I find for me personally, tech is very creative. We're all kind of left brain, left-handed, right brain, whatever it is, but we've got that creative flair, right? And a lot of the time, particularly in the engineering space, you don't physically see what you do, right? You write code. I mean, you do physically see it, but it's not like you drive past your code every day on the way to work, right? Is there something you do to kind of express your creative elements or something you do outside of work that kind of you think it's because I'm a techie I do that?
I do still work a little bit like when I was a developer. It wasn't an engineer in those days. It was a developer. I would more or less make websites. So I still do that as a hobby.
Yep.
And I work with my friends who have small businesses when they need a website or they need some marketing done or they just need advice and a sounding board. So I still do that kind of for fun, I suppose.
Yeah.
The other aspect that probably comes in with my analytical brain is, funnily enough, parenting.
Yeah.
Whenever you have a challenge, you turn to Google and you try and find some data or a study or, whatever it is to try and bring that information back into and put it into practice.
Yep.
So I definitely find it with that. Even the people skills that you develop as part of parenting are quite useful in the world of leadership and vice versa, which I always find quite interesting.
So I can't have a conversation with someone in today's day and age. And when I say today's day and age, since September 2022, when generative AI took over the world, without asking about AI. So how has AI become a big part of what you do over the last, it's funny, we talk about it being 12 months. It's actually been like 20, 30 years, but is it a big part of what you've done? Has it changed since, ChatGPT became the thing it is?
Yeah, I think it has to. I'm not a massive proponent of AI. However, you can't avoid it anymore. Customers are interested by it. Product managers want to explore it. CEOs are excited by it. So it's 100% in our day-to-day. We're always looking for opportunities where we can leverage AI in the technology that we build. I think jury's still out as to how useful it is and how much of a fad it is currently. The kinds of things that we're doing with AI are time savers. Whereas previously you'd have to write out your training step by step, now you can give it a subject line and a description and it will automatically generate. Same with, it's basically ChatGPT, right? But in-app. So that's 100% useful. I don't know if it's groundbreaking yet in a business sense. People are certainly having a lot of fun with it though.
Yeah, one of the businesses in our group under Singtel is Optus, and they got the pause button, and so we're all on pause for the family because that way at least I know if the kids don't listen. The pause button's on, you concentrate. Have you found you've had to do anything like that with your teams to kind of, not the pause button, but forcing them to collaborate? Because nothing annoys me more than sitting in a meeting and someone's like the phone in front of them.
You do get it from time to time, like no major issues, but for sure I've, chatted to someone or two after a meeting and saying, hey, like you're on your laptop for that meeting. And they're like, oh, it was work related, but that's fine unless you've got a Sev 1 incident, in which case tell the room and let's deal with it together.
Yeah.
It can wait, let's all be in the same conversation.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love the collaborations. I think it's such a moving world. I think, technology makes it easier, makes it more exciting, makes it more fun too. Like, we joked a little bit about some of those metaverse environments, but they're real. Like all this sort of stuff's coming about. And I just think, it just gamifies a little bit of how we do it and keeps it together. So, look, this has been a great conversation, Katy. It's good to have you on. Good to chat to you. And good luck with everything. And be keen to see you in 10 years' time. Come and visit your vineyard and
absolutely
have some vino with you.
Sounds great. See you then.
Awesome. If you found today's episode interesting and want to hear more about our Make Tomorrows, please subscribe to our channel.